Youth sports has become an industry. It's literally a $40 billion industry.
Youth sports help kids develop physically, but what about spiritually? Let's talk about it with Brian Smith and Ed Uszynski on Steve Brown, etc.
He's an old white guy, an author, broadcaster, and seminary professor who's sick of religion. And he's brought friends. Please welcome Steve Brown, etc.
Hey, we're so glad you're here. You always have a place at your table, at our table. And in case you're wondering, I am the old white guy to which the lady referred earlier. Matthew Porter is our executive producer. Matthew says that Google answers questions nonstop 24/7. He calls his use of Google Mom. I saw a slogan the other day, be nice to your parents. They got through college without using Google. And our producer, Jeremy, is in this little glass booth. Jeremy, you just got back from a family reunion without losing your salvation, I trust.
It was close. It's touch and go.
Our one-man IT department, John Myers, is in the tech bunker. John took his car to the shop for a repair, and in an ironic plot twist, they asked him if he had tried restarting it. That's
Did you
not funny.
turn it off and turn it back on?
That's not funny. Yeah. Dr. George Bingham is the president of Key Life. George says that when it comes to terrible ideas, plant-based meat is second only to communism.
Why in the world do you want to, if you want to eat plants, I mean, why
pull them
try
up
and make
eat
it
them.
look
Don't
like
try
meat.
to make them, I agree. And Kathy Wyatt is the soft, feminine side of the program. Kathy, last Wednesday was something called Chocolate Pecan Pie Day. I think we ought to celebrate with the cherry pie.
Well, I definitely see the logic in that.
Hey, guys, we're going to have a great program today, and we're going to talk about something you probably haven't even thought about. Well, maybe you did, but you kind of stuffed it because it was too threatening and convicting. We have two guests. Brian Smith has authored several books, including The Christian Athlete, and he's been on the staff of Athletes in Action since 2008. That, by the way, started with Crew, didn't it, Brian? Is it still affiliated with that?
It is, yeah. We are the athletic arm of Crew.
Okay. He's a graduate of Wake Forest University, holds a master's degree in theology and sports studies. You got to be kidding.
Isn't that something?
And he got that at Baylor University. That's a Baptist place, and it shouldn't surprise me that they're doing that sort of thing. Ed Uszynski has been here before. He's an author, speaker, sports minister. His writing focuses on the intersection of faith and sport, and he's the lead strategist for Content Mercenaries. I have no idea. I'm not even going to ask. Ed has 2 theological degrees from Trinity Evangelical Divinity School, a PhD in American Culture Study from Bowling Green State University. And they have written a great book that you need to get. It's called Away Game. I hold it in my nicotine-stained fingers. And given that we're going to talk about sports and health and stuff like that, just leave me alone.
Just going to say.
Yeah, right. Subtitle, Christian Parents' Guide to Navigating Youth Sports. Guys, I guess I'll start with Ed because he's on my left and Brian is on my right. Why do we need to navigate youth sports? Give them a ball bat, send them out, and help them hit well. Isn't that enough?
It should be. Yeah, that's what we want to get back to. But really, in the last 50 years, youth sports has become an industry. It's literally a $40 billion industry.
Man.
And Brian and I, we've worked together for years in Athletes in Action, like you mentioned, working with college and professional athletes. But he's got 3 kids, I've got 4. And when we started coaching and we started spending a lot more time in youth sports about a decade ago, we just realized that Christians in particular need to realize what this industry is and think more intentionally about how to be Christian in the midst of it.
I've been watching the Little League World Series on television, and I thought, they're cute kids, and look at what they're doing. I didn't realize that it was all an industry and that people were hustling. That means that bad stuff happens, doesn't it, Brian?
Yeah, it means that ultimately kids end up, who this should be about, it should be about the kids having fun, but they end up becoming commodities that oftentimes well-intentioned adults, entrepreneur type people find ways to make money off of. And so you said, like, yeah, you just need a ball and a bat. But we have found out that if you create bats that cost $400 or $500, parents will buy them for their kids. And when you buy your kid a $500 bat, that comes with an expectation that they're going to use that well. And when they don't use it well, parents get frustrated. And so you can see how it just kind of snowballs into putting a lot of pressure and anxiety on the kid who they just want to play. They just want to swing a bat. But we've bought into the lie that they need the best of everything. And it's putting a lot of pressure on our kids. The stats are telling us that 70% of kids are quitting youth sports by the age of 13, and in large part because we're treating them like professional athletes way too early.
Oh man, is the solution simply reading your book, being aware of what's going on, of the things hurting our kids, and then saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. I'm not doing this.
Yeah. No, that's a great question, Steve. And Brian and I would say we want to follow in the footsteps of Daniel, the biblical character Daniel, who was in Babylon, which was a pretty intensely secular culture that did not have kingdom values at its core. And yet he and his friends did not separate and isolate themselves from that culture. They didn't get assimilated or just kind of go for the ride in the culture, but they hung out in the middle and learned how to be obediently involved, and how to engage the culture and be Christians, be kingdom-minded people in the midst of it, so that in their little corner of it, it looked and smelled and felt a lot different to the people that encountered them there. We want to be Christians that are transforming our little corner of the bleachers to do it differently with our kids. So the book is really about discipling our kids. It's not so much a critique just of sport culture. Anybody that's going to pick this book up and is already in sport culture already knows that it's a machine and they're on a fast moving train that's taking them places they may not want to go. And we're saying, okay, on that train, you can call a timeout and make sure that you're focusing on how to make your kid a Jesus follower in the midst of it, and not just good at hitting the outside corner, the pitch that's on the outside corner, to keep using the baseball illustration that we're working here.
We Christians are pretty good when things go south in our culture to form new institutions. We have Christian cookies and Christian movies and Christian publishers. So we just say a pox on both your houses. We're going to do our own thing. But you're saying something about not doing that, being involved and making a difference.
Yeah, Paul's going to tell us in 1 Corinthians that we're actually called to be ministers of reconciliation, that all of us put on that identity as believers. And so youth sports still provides like one of the most unique spaces in our culture where we are around our neighbors, maybe our friends, but we're around people with a similar goal. We all want to watch our kids play and hopefully do well. And so what other areas in culture today are you consistently around people who are not a part of your church necessarily, where you then get the opportunity to look different than the rest of culture? And so what we're calling for in this book is let's as Christians try to look different. What would it look like for us to put on a new identity as we're sitting in the stands? And maybe the words that are coming out of our mouth sound a little bit different than the person to our right and to our left. Maybe even more importantly than that, maybe the posture of our heart as we sit and watch our kids play is different than the rest of culture as well. And so, yes, missional, but it's also a discipleship opportunity for us.
You know, my friend, longtime friend, Eddie Waxer, and I'm sure you guys know him, has sensitized me. I'm not a sports person, but I like playing and stuff like that, but he sensitized me to the great power of sports to even change our culture if we learn how to do it right. And we're going to be talking about how to do it right on the other side of the break. The book is Away Game, a Christian parent's guide to navigating youth sports. This is really hard work, harder than basketball or tennis. And so periodically, we, after working hard at this, need to take a break, have some milk and cookies, and then, like Jesus, we'll return. Joining us, we're talking to Brian Smith and Ed Uszynski, and their new book is called Away Game, a Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports.
Really enjoyed, as soon as this book came across our desk, my desk, that we were going to do this, I was excited because I haven't really heard anybody in our world talking about this. We have 4 kids, and sports is kind of, cross country, football, flag football, name it, and our kids are doing it. And Brian, early on in the book, you shared a story about kind of losing control and like yelling out in the middle of, I think it was a football game, and I'm like, oh, I've been there. I've been there a lot. It's not the exception now. It's like not for me, from coaching and from cheering the kids on. So this is incredibly relevant. Talk to us about it, because I think usually we can kind of think of, yes, you learn a lot from youth sports, kind of in a just kind of character level, but not anything maybe deeper. You're like, oh, you learn to kind of be tough and learn from the losses, and you're like, there's value there. But to get to spiritual, more meaty stuff, I've not heard anybody talk about that. How do you enter into that realm with the kids?
Yeah, so even in the beginning story of the book, so for the listeners, I yelled something from the stand, and it just created chaos everywhere. The refs were horrible, and I politely let them know about it, but then they talked back to me, and both stands just kind of erupted, and so it was chaos the rest of the game.
Brian, I'm
After
not
the
sure
game,
you're saying.
He wasn't either after that.
I was not. There would be a lot of people that would contest that. After the game, though, there were 2 kids that went up to these referees who did a horrible job and shook their hands, looked them in the eye, and said, "Thank you for reffing today." And there were two kids that one was my son, the other kid that I had coached before, because I had taught them this idea that we are supposed to look out for the people who are on the margins in sport, the people that don't get paid attention to, which is very, very Jesus-like. That's where I'm getting that from, right? Jesus shows up in these spaces and he pays attention to the people that aren't the star athletes. He's paying attention to the people who would be sitting on the end of the bench and probably the referees. And so I'm hoping through my parenting and coaching of kids that when they enter into these practices or games, that they begin to have eyes and a heart for the people that a lot of people are just ignoring. That would be the spiritual part of it, that when they enter into these spaces, they would first see like who around me right now maybe needs to be picked up a little bit, who is being ignored.
Which is the exact opposite of what sport culture teaches. So sport culture, and this is part of what we're doing in this book too, is just to point out that sport culture is teaching a very different value. It's actually teaching our kids, and us for that matter, to put ourselves in the center of the story, to make sure we're getting taken care of, we're getting noticed, we're getting paid if we make it to the college level. It's all about what's best for me and my family, kind of that old adage. And so this just sort of the idea of what Brian just said just flips it on its head, that we're actually supposed to teach even our 6-year-old how to agape love those around them. And sports provides just a great opportunity to do that, even though they'll never be taught by anyone to do that unless we teach them or they have a coach that teaches them to do that. That's why we got to be changed first. And the whole book kind of starts off with even what you said, Matthew, like we may be the biggest problem. Our kids aren't the problem. We're the problem. As adults, as parents we've got other stuff going on inside of us that's coming out sideways and that's coming out in bad ways in the sport culture.
Ed and Brian, I grew up in the days where you played baseball in the city league in the summer, and then the fall came around and it was football time and so forth. And you could actually do that, in fact, all the way through high school. But these days, it has gotten to the point where it's, sort of like you need to pick your sport by the time you're 10 because you're going to be doing that year round or whatever. How did we get there? And do we go with the practically professional schedule of things? How does that work?
Well, that's why we call it the youth sport industrial complex. That's one facet of the industry, is that we're going to force kids to specialize earlier and earlier because we want to keep them year round. So you apply the same thing. I had the same experience. You'd play for 6 weeks, 2 months at most, and not go anywhere to do it. Now you've got to travel. Now you've got to get specialized coaches. Now you've got to, like Brian already talked about, get the best gear, be in the most select or elite club, and pay the most money to be part of that. And it creates a ton of pressure. And all science and all the research says that's actually not good for kids. Even most Division I coaches would say that they would prefer kids that have actually not specialized in their sport, because they've overused those muscles by the time that they get to college, and because they just are more developed. They won't get as burnt out. They still have a fresh energy for the sport if they played a whole bunch of other sports. But that doesn't align with somebody, again, that's running a club and has something to offer for your kid year round, and is going to take advantage of your fear of missing out, and is going to take advantage of you feeling like your kid's going to fall behind if they don't stay with their foot on the pedal the entire year in this sport. And it's a lie. It's not good for the kids, and it's not really necessary.
Is there a place here for speaking truth to power? I know being sensitive to those who are not a part of the in-group, I get that. I get love and kindness, but is there a place where, as Christians, we need to make an obscene gesture and say, I'm tired of this. This is hurting our kids, and you got to stop it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what we've kind of said from the beginning of even writing this book is we're hoping this is something that would be utilized by the local church, that we really believe like this is a conversation the church needs to be involved in. When was the last time we've sat in church and we've heard the pastor give a good theology about sport or play? I mean, youth sports is a $40 billion industry. NFL season is right around the corner. And so like and that's going to captivate our attention. It's idolatrous, but how often are we talking about that from up front? So yes, absolutely, Steve. This is an incredible opportunity for the church to stand up and say, sport is a good gift from God that we have twisted and manipulated to serve our own purposes. What would it look like to redeem it in this space?
Hmm. Do you find that the leaders in this sports movement listen when you say things like that? They've got to feel a little bit guilty, even if they're pagans.
I mean, some yes, some no, just like in any other arena. And so as far as me and my house, what's it going to look like for us to serve the Lord in this space, like we've said? So yeah, I'll be part of the summer league, but we're not going to play year round with you. I think you can totally stand up and say that. Some of us need to say, yeah, we're not going to be playing at 9 a.m. on Sunday mornings. We think that's still a very legitimate thing to stand up and say if you're uncomfortable with that.
Listen,
yeah, absolutely.
Guys, you've got to get this book if you got kids or grandkids and you're into sports. This may be the most important book that you read this year. Don't go away. Glad you're here. We're hanging out with Brian Smith and Ed Uszynski. You can keep up with Brian at thechristianathlete.com, thechristianathlete.com, and on X at Brian Smith A-I-A.
Athletes in Action.
There you go. And then if you want to talk to Ed and keep up with him, it's Uszynski, Uszynski 32. Ed, do you have a website?
I do not. I hang out with Brian on his.
There you go.
Nice.
We generally don't let our producer talk. In fact, he's so busy he doesn't get a chance to talk. But you had a great question.
Well, thank you for your encouragement, sir. Just thinking about it, if you're going to play a game and you're going to keep score in this game, there is an inherent meritocracy. Those who score more points get more opportunity to score more points. And all of that sort of makes sense. But in the context of what you were saying about being aware of those people who might be sitting on the bench, might not have all the opportunities and as everyone else, and trying to be Jesus to those folks. How do you balance those two things that seem like a dichotomy?
Yeah, one of the things that I've tried to do just in my own coaching of youth sports and trying to bring my Christian values into that space and wrestling with this very question is I'm teaching my own kids that are on the team, what does it look like to try to win, but to do so in a way that honors the Lord in the process? And so we consistently use phrases like, we're going to give our best today because that's honoring to our opponent. That when we bring the very best of who we are and how God has gifted us, and for kids, when we try our hardest, whether we're up by 10 or down by 10, it's a way to honor the people that we're playing against. And so again, we're trying to take the focus off of self. We're not trying to crush or kill our opponent. We're actually trying to honor them. And the way we do that, just try your best. So we'll be in a huddle for football with like a minute left on the clock and we're down by 3 touchdowns. How can we honor our opponent today? Hey, we still got to try our best out there. Let's give them our very best until the whistle blows.
Ed, you got something to add to that?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I don't think that they're mutually exclusive ideas. I think you can do both. I mean, again, that's what we've been teaching college athletes forever, that you best honor God by trying to win. But in trying to win, that doesn't mean then that you lose your responsibility to operate towards other people in a certain kind of way. Like, you can do both. You can go after the trophy, go after the championship, but that's not ultimately the highest value. And maybe that's even what needs to be talked about, is that winning's been turned into the highest value. ESPN has kind of forced us into that through the years, where the only thing they ever talk about is those who win the championships. And that's all that counts anymore. And we're just saying, well, you can win championships, but there's values that actually mean more in life across the entirety of our lifetime than just whether or not we got one more goal in the 10-year-old soccer game. Isn't there? I mean, whether or not my kid struck out 100 times when he was 12 doesn't matter as much as how he went through the handshake line after the game. Mm-hmm. That's actually still having implications for him at age 25. Mm-hmm. The stats really don't. But we want to win. So again, we don't want people to even read this book or think that we're being participation trophy guys. We're not. No, you should absolutely try to win, and you should learn how to love people in the midst of it.
And to do so with this foundation of your identity doesn't necessarily change based on whether you lose or lose. Like, that's gospel type language too. And that's part of the issue that our culture pushes, is if you win, that means you are a winner. But winners also have to win again and again and again. And if you lose, you're a loser. And I want my kids, whether they win or lose, to get in the car and to know that, hey, Dad still loves them regardless of what happened.
Do you find that your kids and the ones you coach and the ones to whom you give this message are open to it, or excited about it, to see that they're involved in mission?
But maybe not mission. That might be another level, but I would say they're desperate for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're desperate for a group of adults that would relieve pressure instead of adding pressure. They're desperate for adults that will say that their identity is based on who God created them to be instead of how they performed in this particular game on this particular day. They're desperate for adults that will say, you can take some time off. You don't have to, keep your foot to the pedal year round in this sport. You actually can take a break and it's going to be okay. And you might actually not make the team. You might not make the team in a few years from now, but it'll be okay. God has something for you regardless. Sorry, Brian, what were you going to say?
They're desperate for a coach or a parent who would say it's okay to neglect the right-hand layup drills right now if you just want to shoot some half-court shots for a couple minutes. Just try not to hit little Johnny in the head who's standing under the basket. The kids just want to have fun.
They want to play.
They're looking for permission to just enjoy sport. And so we need to do that for them.
Good stuff. I'm not surprised that they are aware of the tension in the sports in which they're involved. That's got to be a hard place. I mean, there's already some pressure there, and you put this on it, and it's got to be a horrible place for a kid to be. Hey, the book is Away Game, a Christian parent's guide to navigating youth sports. And if you've got kids or grandkids, or your church is involved in a church league, or there is sports somewhere in your life, you got to read this book. It's a must read. Thanks for spending this hour with us. If you're listening to the last segment of the show, then you must have already signed up for our weekly email, right? No? Well, worry not. Just go to keylife.org/subscribe. And don't write us letters. It's free, so you can't complain.
I wanted to tell a quick story and ask a question. Last school year, I went to several basketball games for one of the daughters of Matthew, and I was just so impressed because it's one thing to go to the first game and you're the child that you're there cheering for, their team loses. But when you keep going and you get to the last one, and they're still, I don't know that they won a game the whole season. And I have never seen such happy little girls in my life. They were thrilled to be on the bench. They were thrilled to be playing. They were thrilled at the end. They go by the, they do the line thing where they go by each other and they knock each other's hand and all that kind of stuff. And then they come off and they're jumping up and down. They weren't even excited about the snacks. They just were, they were so excited. And I think that says a lot, number one, about their parents and also about the coaching, situation. I will, however, say, and he was very well behaved, that there were a few times that Matthew in the stands went, "What? What?"
I don't know. Well, that circles back to something kind of we were touched on earlier is, there's what we teach the kids, but there's also where the parents' heads need to be as far as being Christians. And, totally unqualified, but positing my theory on this, I think it's not just that they want their kids to win and succeed. It's baggage that they're bringing to it of, like, I wasn't as good at sports as somebody else. I feel whatever unresolved childhood issues, and now I've got to vicariously resolve that through my kid on the field. Like, that's so much pressure, and it's such the wrong way to fix those problems. Does that hold any water at all? Do you see that in play?
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
does. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, let me start at it, and then you can piggyback off it. It is baggage. It's also our own identity. And so when my kid plays well in sport, in a skewed way, it makes me look. At least I feel like I look a lot better in the stands.
Yeah.
That I walk to the field with maybe a little bit more of a swagger, knowing that my kid's really good. When my kid is the one who lost the game for the team, I feel embarrassed. Like, not just for my kid, for myself as the parent, like other people are looking at me. And so it is this weird, like, our kids, because they are made in our image, they're an extension of us. We feel like the way that they play and perform has a direct impact on how everybody else sees us. And it means we come to the games and competitions with expectations, but also anxiety that our kids, how they perform is going to make us look good or bad as parents. And it's crazy.
Listen, nothing exposed what was really inside of me. I thought nothing more was going to expose what was really inside of me than getting married to my wife, Amy, 25 years ago. Living with her up close exposed what was really inside of me. Well, having 4 kids just took that to a whole nother level. It's exposed lots of dark areas in me that I don't want to have a light shone on, of insecurity, of idolatry, of trying to get something out of my kids that only God can provide, as weird as that sounds. My desire to feel about myself in a certain kind of way, like Brian just talked about, that rises and falls with my child's performance. That's something inside of me that needs to be sanctified, if we can just keep using Jesus language here. It needs to be set apart and cleaned up and reformed. It needs to be changed. Like, I think we talked about that in Romans, like, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't just be conformed to the way the world is operating, but be changed. And my kids are exposing areas inside of me that need to be changed, that need to grow up. But too many of us just don't even want that to be put out in the light, especially in the church. So again, let's just talk about the church. I don't expect everybody out there in the stands to be going along with what we're talking about. We're talking to Jesus people.
Yeah.
Who are purposely living, or supposed to be living, in a countercultural way in every aspect of our life. We're to be reformed. And this is one that it really gives us a great opportunity to change, if we're open to it, to change areas that otherwise have kind of just stayed in the darkness inside of us. But going to a youth sports event will bring it out and put it on display for the whole world to see.
Just to make it really tactical, we're walking off the field, right? The game was a disaster. We pile into the minivan. It's just kind of hanging on us. And what do we do? What's the conversation?
Brian, I want you to answer that, but let me just say this. What Kathy said earlier about watching those girls at the game play is so important. They just want to play. They don't care about winning. We care about winning.
Yeah.
And so you said you put your hands together for the parents. Well, not sure yet. We'll know whether the parents actually are allowing that to happen based on what they do on the way home. So Brian, go ahead and talk about what that might look like.
Yeah, I mean, what do I want to do? My flesh, I want to analyze everything that happened. One, because I want my kid to get better. Two, it's really fun to talk about sports and what went right and what went wrong. Three, I've been discipled by ESPN to think that way. I'm watching the game thinking, let's analyze it. Let's talk about what went well and what didn't. In the process of writing this book and just doing plenty of research, seeing how the car ride home is one of the key places where we get this wrong, that our kids just want to connect. They don't want coaching. They don't want critique. They don't want to be criticized. So I've started asking this question, get in the car ride after the game, and I say, is there anything that happened today that you want to talk about? And can you guess what they say? 9 times out of 10, probably even greater than that. No.
Yeah, no.
They don't want to talk about the game because they're over it. They're over it. They want to listen to music. Maybe they want to get. Might want to get ice cream. They just want to listen to music.
I was just going to say they're on to Chick-fil-A.
They are on the Chick-fil-A. Yeah, they don't.
It's me who's constantly thinking about the game and how it went and how could it went different. They're already on to the next thing. Go ahead, Ed.
Well, I think there's something wrong with that as a parent. And again, that's saying something more about me. Why is there something wrong with that? They're playing a game. Why do they have to analyze it? Or even, and again, if it's a behavior thing, no, we'll confront that right away. You know, if they're cussing somebody out or they're being an idiot on the bench the whole game or whatever, we're going to talk about that right away. But we're talking about performance. Most kids, they don't want to talk about performance, and we don't have to.
That's good. Guys, we're out of time. There is so much more. Get a group in your church, people with kids involved in sports, and sit down and get this book and study it and begin to share it with people you know. This is maybe more important than you think. Guys, you've done a good thing. Thank you for the time you've given to it, that you've given to sports and the difference that you're making. I hope we can have you both on again soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, the name of the book, Away Game, A Christian Parent's Guide to Navigating Youth Sports. Hey, we'll be back and tell you who we're going to do it unto next week. What a great hour. You know, we sometimes forget that the living out of the truths that we know are true happens in what we do day in and day out. And sports is such an important part of our culture. As mentioned, Eddie Waxer, Eddie says it is the most effective tool for evangelism that we know about anywhere. And but where you work, what you do at work, how you treat people, what you do with the man who just washed your car or who served you in some way. I love that when Ed talked about one of the kids going up to the umpire and shaking hands and thanking him for what he did. You know, that can be an effective witness. So don't do it just with sports. Do it in all your life with all the relationships that you have. Don't then say, when they question you, oh, it was Jesus. All of a sudden, then the authenticity becomes phony. Just smile and say you're welcome. And maybe there'll be a chance down the line to say something deeper and more important than what you just did. I bet that kid's going to have an opportunity to even talk to the umpire of the game later on, just because he thanked him for doing what nobody ever thank. You don't thank dentists, and you don't thank umpires. You just ignore both and go somewhere else. Well, you get the point. Who's going to be on next week?
Next week is such a fun show. We're going to have the best time. We're going to do an anniversary show for the 40th anniversary of Key Life, of which Steve Brown, etc., is a part. And we'll have food.
Oh, all right.
And we've got some surprises.
Oh.
And it's just going to be way fun. I mean, can you believe that we're 40 years old?
40 years we've been doing this.
August of 1985.
Wow.
You know, when I started, I was hoping we could lead the world to Christ. After 40 years, I'm saying, Lord, don't let us lose too many. We're going to be back same time, same place next week. Come celebrate with us. Between now and then, don't do anything we wouldn't, and that gives you a wide, wide berth.
I think we should